Hey everybody, on this episode of AFTERBUZZ TV Spotlight On, we're getting up close and personal with filmmaker Tim Noonan. Let's do it.
You're tuning into the destination for TV superfan discussion, AFTERBUZZ TV. And now, let the buzz begin.
All right, Sticks playing us in here to AFTERBUZZ TV Spotlight On. This is the show where we get up close and personal with all the people that bring you all the great content that you watch on your TVs, your mobile streaming devices, on your computer screens. I'm your host, Frank Moran. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at HappyGoJackie. Now, my guest, and this is going to be a fun one, folks. He is a filmmaker, he's a producer, he's a reporter, he's a cameraman, he's a one-man band, as they like to call in that business. But he decided to pursue life's big questions about basically covering human transitional experiences. That's what he wanted to go and cover. So he set around the world, and he has done some crazy things. And we're going to get into it in just a little bit. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Tim Noonan.
Thanks, mate. Thanks, Frank.
Oh, yes. So now, just one more plug here. It's all going to be starting on the L-Rate Network on June 8th. A Rite of Passage. That's going to be the big new series that we're going to be seeing.
Yeah, so this was almost 2 years of my life. And it was all about trying to design my own rite of passage and put myself through 12 initiations in 12 different countries, see if I could match it with some of the toughest men in the world and come out the other side and have survived it. So it was pretty intense.
Well, so now you did you grow up in Sydney or just in or somewhere else in Australia?
Yeah, I grew up in Tasmania, which is a little island down the very south of Australia, and then I moved around. Eventually, based myself in Sydney, and that's where I've been for the last 10 years. So yeah, it was a big thing. I'd always wanted to go off and have that great adventure and explore the world and try to man up. And yeah, that's what this whole series was about, and I'm really stoked.
So you were doing stories for news stations in Sydney. Got to basically, as I was saying, a one-man band. You're doing everything.
Yeah, that's correct. So I started off as a journalist, working for a show that was similar to CBS 60 Minutes. Mm-hmm. So I'd travel the world and report on different issues, and I would shoot and host and produce my own stuff. But then I felt like I sort of reached a ceiling and wanted to go off and make my own stuff. And it was a pretty big risk. Like, when you walk away from a job to pursue a passion, you've really got to be all in or all out. And it took commitment. But
so when you come to this point where, like, I got to make a choice and I got to do something that I'm really passionate about, you tell your friends and family, you know what, I'm going to leave everything that I know right now and go off and do this. Are they surprised or like, yep, Tim, we've just been waiting for you to actually do something like this because we can tell you're itching to do something?
Well, I'd always sort of tried to jump off the deep end, but I'd lived in this stair-step mentality, where you'd get to a job and you'd conquer it, and then you'd sort of look around and go, where am I going to go next, and what's my next challenge? And then this was just like a natural progression where I had an idea, and my fiance at the time literally kicked me out the door to go chase this dream. Nobody quite knew what I was getting myself into. I mean, to be honest, I didn't really know. I just knew that I had 12 tribes that I wanted to go and live with. And I had a brief outline of what I would hope the initiation would be in these crazy parts of the world. But until you hit the ground, you never, ever quite know what's coming for you, because you can't predict which way the story's going to turn and what will happen.
Now, doing this research for all these 12 destinations, were these areas that you'd come in contact with during your work on the news program that you worked on, or these were just places that you'd always heard about?
These are some of the places. It's a bit of a mixture. I mean, when I was working for this news program, I was privileged enough to visit some cultures that were on the edge of extinction. Not so much in the people, but in their way of life. And it really disturbed me, I think, that all of these things that I was seeing were so special, and traditions and rituals and initiations that had existed for thousands of years. We're at this crux, this turning point. Within 5 or 10 years, they're going to be gone. And so not only did I want to sort of put myself through the initiation, but I really wanted to document it before it's forgotten about, a lot of these rituals.
And I feel like many people that have that opportunity to see these cultures would be like, that is a shame that something like this is being lost. I'm just going to go back home and just continue on with my life, but still feel a little bit bad about it. I think it takes like just a person with a lot of just drive and commitment to decide to see those things and decide, I'm going to leave everything that I know behind and want to go out there and really document these special moments that are dwindling right now in civilization.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, some of them are quite extreme, and the whole idea was not to judge. Like, I never wanted to judge a culture for its traditions. I really wanted to try to get to the heart of what made them tick and try to understand where they were coming from and see how that could change me. I mean, I'm all into transformation and trying to push myself. I mean, one of the biggest things that drives me is conquering fear, because I know that it's in any facet of my life. By embracing challenge, it's the only way that I feel like you can grow. Because a lot of people, I think when we grow up, we're sort of bred to be frightened of obstacles, and they see them as negative and challenge as negative. But when you flip that on its head and realize it's the only way that you grow, and I think I choose to try to put myself into those situations where I do feel fear, and embrace that and know that it's only going to be for the better, then you kind of can have a new outlook on life. And that's what this was about.
I feel one of just even the biggest challenge is just saying, I'm going to leave what I have right now.
Yeah.
And leave the security and just step out into the unknown. I feel just even that one thing is just something that, just that initial step is something that so many people have a tough time doing, to leave that security blanket that they have around themselves.
Totally.
Did you have any moments of self-doubt coming up to that? Or were you pretty much like, nope, once I knew I made that decision, I was all in?
Well, when I made the decision, it's funny, like when you choose to follow your bliss or you follow that calling inside you, whatever you love, truly love to do. Everybody has a dream, but some people might not have the courage to actually put their foot to the floor and go for it for whatever reason. They think they can't do it, but what I've found is every time I've committed that to myself, that I'm going to go do something, it's like the universe just opens up doors for you and things happen that they might not have happened for other people. And I've just I found that every single time. And I really did feel like with this series, that we were protected in a way by some greater power, whatever that may be. Because, we explored different religions and people had different beliefs everywhere we went. But there was this series wanted to get made, and I just had to hang on for the ride. Yeah. So
when you go about, you say your 12 locations, how do you actually just set up, because you don't have a lead person, I would imagine. So are you you pick your destinations, you're going there and hoping you set everything up on the fly? Are you able to arrange anything in advance in terms of, I'd like to come to your village, spend 3 weeks there, go through a rite of passage? Sometimes,
I had 12 ideas of places that we wanted to go, and we would, we had a researcher back in Sydney who then would contact a fixer on the ground, which is like a local guide, and then that local guide would usually go and make contact with a village or a tribe and say, hey, would it be okay if we came to live with you? And more, in fact, every single time we changed that location. So it really was flying blind. We'd arrive in a country, go to where we were meant to, change it, and then look for somewhere deeper, because the modern world has virtually engulfed everywhere. The most remote parts of the Amazon and Africa and Papua New Guinea, everywhere, you name it. Facebook's everywhere. So it's really hard to find those last little places. If there was cell phone reception, we hadn't gone far enough. So it would be a case of going, right, let's look at the map. Where's the most remote place we can go? We're going there. And we would go and we would find these last little bastions of people still withholding their traditions that have lasted for these thousands of years. And then we'd have to sit down, negotiate with them, see if they'd accept us, and then start to plan what I was in for. And yeah, some of them were really quite scary.
Were the negotiations easy, or were there some places that were really very resistant and you really had to talk to them and explain to them everything that was going to happen to be able to get them to allow you to do this?
I think everybody was really receptive because they could see the passion of what we were trying to do. I mean, everybody, again, it doesn't really matter where in the world you're from. The elders have this constant issue with the young wanting to leave their tribal areas and then go into the city and have a life, a Western life like we do. And you can't blame anybody for wanting the creature comforts of the city. But with that, loses tradition. So they could see that we really wanted to capture those, like immortalize these customs that they've had for so long. So they were pretty receptive. Everybody was, up and willing, ready for the challenge. And but
I almost imagine it's, for me, I'm imagining every time you go there and you want to do that rite of passage, that it's like that scene in Young Frankenstein where Gene Wilder is saying, I'm going to go into this room and no matter what I say, don't let me out. And then as soon as he walks in, let me out. Yeah. And I imagine that is any time where you're like, I'm going to do this rite of passage, no matter what I say, make me do this. And you guys, no, I'm good. Nope, I'm done. I don't need to do it.
Every time. Every time. So during the series, part of being a man in Madagascar, you have to jump into a bull and ride a bull in a pit for 7 seconds and then jump out. In Cameroon, part of being a man is having the courage to go head first into a snake's lair and grab a python for food for the village. There's another one in Brazil where you need to climb up into a tree canopy and have the bravery to be able to hit a wasp nest and suffer the stings and be then put through hours and hours and hours of agony where you think you're going to die, and then you emerge the other side of man. But they're, every single one of them, I shuddered in my boots and thought, how am I going to do this? And that, conquering that was always far worse than the initiation themselves. It was always worse, the fear of something that, that you were going to be put through. And the lead up to that, knowing that D-Day was coming, and then emerging the other side. I mean, I think people often ask, like, do you feel like more of a man after you've been through these initiations, these rites of passage? And it's like, I do. Like, I can't deny that, because, even as a boy, they're separated from their parents. I'd left everything I knew behind back in Sydney. And then you go through this process where they teach you, how to become a man, how to survive, how to be capable, be a protector, be a provider. And then you go through this period that all leads up to this major obstacle that's extremely frightening. You go past it, through it, you're successful, and then you reintegrate back into the society as a new person. And you can't help but have like a physical, and mental, and emotional shift from that.
Well, it's is it pretty similar with all the rites of passages, that it is just, in a sense, facing your own mortality.
Yeah.
You put in these situations, and if you can conquer that, you've kind of made that transition from boy to man.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's almost like they describe it almost like you have to kill the boy inside you to become a man. I mean, we grow up dependent, as children on our parents, and it's all about divorcing that boy and recognizing that you are a capable provider in your own right, and that's what these rites of passage are all about. It's about sort of saying goodbye to the dependent child in you, and then finding that self-reliant man inside you that can make decisions, and is prepared to have their his own family. Yeah.
Do you find when you come back and you're just back in civilization again that after going through these, that you see that and you realize, we could stand to have some rites of passages in our Western civilization? Yeah,
I think we're missing out on that. Like, we're missing out on rituals. I mean, for you, what would it have been? You get your license, you might go out and have beers for the first time.
Yep.
You might go on a gap year and go overseas and return. But the problem is there's no like ceremony to say, hey, Frank, you did it. He's come home and now you're a man and you're now recognised as a man.
Yeah, that's right. And I feel like the only thing is maybe like a bar mitzvah where you kind of celebrate that moment, but it's more of just a celebration. There's it's ceremonial, but there's nothing like facing your own mortality in that kind of situation.
But I guess that's still a rite of passage.
Yeah.
So a bar mitzvah, absolutely.
Unless they made you like wrestle a bear, and now you must wrestle a bear. I'm like, what? No. So you spent about 3 weeks on average in each of these locations. Was that enough time?
No more, actually. Like sometimes it was up to 6 weeks.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, some of them were, like, the minimum would have been 3 weeks, but by the time we had to find new areas and then find the tribe that we'd end up living with, most of them ended up being at least a month, sometimes longer.
Did you feel like you had a good grasp of that rite of passage leading up to it, or you could have used more time to really
totally? I mean, these men get put through these rites normally sometimes for years. it can last sometimes 6 years from boy to man.
Wow.
In some of these places. So no, I always felt like the token foreigner, token white guy trying to match it with these men, but you can't help but have some of that rub off. And it was, I mean, there was just no way. I could have stayed in these places, some of them forever.
Well, I know the way watching the end of the Cameroon episode where you just you felt so at home amongst those people in that village.
Yeah, no, they were just the most incredible people ever, and we'd been through such a big experience because, you know, you arrive there and there's just me and one other guy. So I decided to chase this dream, and my best mate, who'd been an editor for his whole life, decided to come with me on the road, and he never used a camera before, so we had to to teach him to use the camera on the fly. And because you're only traveling with one other person, you're only two up, what happens is the tribe become this giant film crew, and everybody pitches in. You chuck them cameras and everyone's making this film together. It's the most magic thing. And so in that Cameroon episode, that was the particular one where the men have to climb down into the hole and wrestle a giant rock python, which is like as big as this room, out of the hole. And once you've done that, you've got the courage to be a man. But there was another. Did you see the part in it where to catch a snake,
you had to put your leg in you had to put your leg in the freaking hole. It's like bait, fishing for a snake.
Yeah. It's crazy. Hey, they that's what they do, you know. So they put the snake hole was too small for me to climb down head first. So they thought the best way was by putting my leg like a Snickers bar down the hole with a dead animal skin, bloody animal skin on it, and then the snake was supposed to swallow my leg. At that point, they were going to pull me out, but.
Because it's not just one thing to have it bite you; it needs to start swallowing you, and then you have to sit there and just let it swallow you for a little bit, and then say, "Okay, it's good enough. Start pulling me out." Just watching that, the time lapse of you just sitting there with your leg in that hole forever. I'm just like, oh man! And then it turns out to be something happens in that hole. I don't want to ruin it for you, but it doesn't quite happen the way that they expected.
No, but you know, we went through this process of like ultimate bonding with those people. And leaving that community, leaving all of the communities is extremely hard because they become like family. Mm-hmm. So we still talk, you know, to my mentor. He's of course on Facebook. And so
well, he's going to be a big star now. Of course, he's got to get on Facebook. Yes, but I like that relationship too because at first he is not very. You know, it's like okay, whatever. This guy's here, sure. It's very much of a chilly reception from him. But by the end, I mean, he's giving you the ceremonial knife, a nice embrace amongst the campfire at the end. You really see that you get to see that him warming up to you along the way. Yeah,
well, you know, I'm a klutz in every location naturally. Like I'd grown up in the city, so you know, when you arrive at a village and you have to start building a hut and cutting down firewood and going hunting for food and everything, you can't help but be a complete fish out of water.
Well, they do something for you in this episode too, where part of it is you have to climb up a tree and get honey. Yeah. And they put essentially what a suit of armor would be if you could just make it amongst the shrubbery around there, which it's so crazy, but I assume must be effective. But you have to just put your bare hand into this and get stung.
Yeah, so they told me that the bees would be sedated by a special herb, which didn't seem to affect the bees too much. So everybody cleared out of the area, and I was nervous as hell because I was about to climb up in this straw suit and I could barely move. And then once I got up there, I looked like the Wicker Man, you know, and then to put my hand into the hive, it was ludicrous. So it looked like there was just bees everywhere, and I just felt like I got electrocuted.
Oh, but, man.
The bravery of these people and their resilience. And they're just so tough. They're like the men in these places.
Because your mentor goes up after you and just does it very calmly. Yeah. But he's also getting stung a bunch of times, right?
Yeah, he doesn't mind.
Oh, sure. Okay. Yeah, why not?
I know. It's demoralizing when that sort of stuff happens.
But, and so you eat a little bit of the honey that you get out of there. And I've never had honey just like fresh from like the honeycomb. And you described it as almost like milky in taste.
No, it's absolutely sensational.
Really?
To actually just sit there with, you know, wild honeycomb and be eating it right after you've harvested it. There's no better taste than that. Especially when sugar in those places is just impossible to get. I mean, it's not like, that's the thing, in these places there's no there's no supermarkets that you can go and just pick off food off a shelf wrapped in plastic. You have to, if you want to eat, you have to go get it. So that requires being good with a bow and arrow, or being good with a spear, or being, growing your own crops. So you really do respect life and animals far differently to when you just take it all so for granted here, when you can just walk in and buy whatever you want.
Well, because you bring that up in both in the Madagascar episode, excuse me, in the Cameroon episode, is that when you have to see an animal get killed, that for you, it's just that struggle. It's like, that it's benefiting these people, but also you still feel that regret about taking another life.
Yeah, always. I mean, the first time I had to take an animal's life, I was in Siberia. And of course, like growing up as a city kid, you don't ever have that exposure to have to do that. So we travelled to like the end of the line in Siberia, got a train to the end of the line, and then travelled out by ex-Soviet tank, and then by skidoo right into the heart of one of the coldest places on earth to live with these reindeer herders, the toughest of the tough men. And they live entirely off their reindeer herds. Everything is made from reindeer skins, and they wear the furs. It's the only thing that keeps you warm. It got down to minus 40 degrees. And the way that they eat out there is, a lot of the time, it was just raw reindeer ribs. And part of being a man is to be brave enough and be man enough to be able to take the animal's life, an animal that you've grown to love. Because they're totally dependent on these reindeer. And so then I had to do that. And then they eat the animal fresh on the ice, raw. So we'd be drinking the blood and just tucking into the liver and all the rest of it, just right on the ice. And that was confronting. And I never quite got over that, taking an animal's life. But I'd rather have the guts to do that myself than just blindly walk into a shop and never think about it.
I would imagine that there's a much more respect and reverence given to those animals in those areas, because they know just how valuable these are and what they're doing to be able to provide for them, giving up their own life to provide for these villages.
Yeah, totally. It's a total respect of the life that's taken. It's kind of like that scene out of Avatar, where they sort of pray and thank the universe for that moment, and that's what it's like, and it's a natural part of life, and it's far more peaceful actually than you'd like to believe.
So when you bring back, as you're kind of processing that, you realize that once you get back to the village and just in Cameroon and see the reaction from the villagers, that you come back now with a rock python, and just how everybody's excited because this is the first time they're going to be able to eat any sort of animal protein, because they've just been doing rice and rice and rice and rice for weeks on end. You realize just, it's regretful, but it's also just a necessary part of this civilization. Yeah,
and it's not mass produced. Like we're not talking about chickens in a room being bred just with all sorts of steroids pumped into them or anything like that. It's like these people they've got crops. They've got virtually nothing. They live off cassava, flour, and it's like the barest earth. They're eking out an existence in one of the harshest places on earth. So for them, eating meat is a rarity, and it's just something that has to happen. I mean, it's one thing to criticize, because those animals are, you think of a snake, and of course it's a grand animal, like a reptile. It's just beautiful, but at the same token, they have to eat too. And so the part of this series was about, not judging.
And I felt like that was really well displayed in the Madagascar episode, when the medicine man, and it's all about, you need to be able to have this special potion before you go and you step into the ring with these bulls, and how anybody that is in the arena with the bulls and they get thrown around or battered or beaten, that the medicine man is just right there to say, you know what, it's a good thing that they had this, because otherwise, the spear would have penetrated.
Well, faith does amazing things, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So for you guys out there, so they wanted to prove to me that in this bull ring, where you needed to jump in to prove your manhood and ride a bull and then jump out unscathed, in this contest it's more about the men get hurt, not the bulls. And they really do. I mean, this guy just got totally annihilated in front of me, but he didn't have any scars on him in the end. But they wanted to prove to me, they all believe that if you take a special medicine from this medicine man that you'll come out unscathed, and the bull's horn won't gore you, and you'll be protected. So he was so desperate for me to prove his worth and this medicine that he arranged this contest, this bull riding contest, and all the men lined up very early in the morning. They all took the potion, and then they all jumped into this ring, and this bull just totally, what looked like, demolished these guys, and they all emerged with not even a scar, like
wow.
Totally unscathed. And they all, whether or not it in their minds is real. Well, in their minds it's very real.
Mm-hmm.
So whether or not it's real or not didn't matter, because it's what they believe in.
Well, certainly, because there's, as you're getting ready to do it, there's one gentleman that is desperate to get in the ring that day, and people are pulling him back because he hasn't been given the okay from the medicine man.
Yeah, he's so desperate to prove his manliness. Glutton for punishment.
Like, no, that is not your day today.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, right before I had to jump in the ring, I saw a guy just get flung through the air. Did you see that?
Yes.
And then land on his head in the corner of the pit.
Yeah.
And it was just so shocking. My jaw was on the floor, and I thank God he was okay.
But you really set it up there for when you say afterwards that there are no doctors, there are no. Nearest hospital is nowhere close. So all they can do to provide comfort for this man is give him a dark room and some words of encouragement.
Yeah, that's it. It's a good
memory.
That's
like, wow, that's.
Well, that was the thing with this whole series. I mean, we didn't have safety officers. There wasn't, probably wouldn't have got made if we had have. There was no way to even broach what the risks might be until you got there. And it was very, very much a case of having to assess it on the ground and what felt right for me. And I had to feel like it wasn't a stunt too. Like I had to always find real reasons why I'd want to jump in the pit with the bull or ride a bucking bronco. And I'd never ridden a horse before. But so I had to find, before I went into these initiations, for me, I had to make sure that I wasn't doing it just to make TV, and it was never about that.
Was there any discussion about, maybe I will just go to these places and just document it just from behind the camera, or was the idea always that you were going to be on camera participating and experiencing these firsthand?
I think the idea was always that I wanted to put myself through that, that own rite of passage and participate where I could. But sometimes being a man means turning away and walking away from a situation for your safety, if you don't feel like instinctively like it's the right thing to do. So there was one instance in Brazil where these guys have to hit this giant wasp nest, and they climb up into the canopy and then hit the nest and get stung all over their body. And I had hit a smaller nest, and it had just done me in. Like I was in agony, and so then, because I got stung so many times, it was just, they just come after you. So for me to then go, and they picked this nest high in the canopy. It was like 3 stories high, and they were getting ready to build the scaffolding up. And I just thought, well, it's just not worth. I still want to have kids and have a family, and it's not worth the risk. So I had to walk away from that.
And how does the village see something like that when you're an outsider? So, I mean, certainly the rules don't necessarily apply to you, but you've said you wanted to participate in this rite of passage, and now you're just basically saying, you know what?
No,
I don't really want to be part of this passage, and I'm good being a boy in this situation.
Well, they were really thankful, actually, because they thought that there was a chance that I could die. So the elders the whole time were advising me not to go through with it. But in sort of my defiance, and after I'd seen the other guys go through with the ritual, I thought, some of the tribesmen, I thought, I can do this, this will be fine. But then as the day loomed closer, it dawned on me just how risky it was. Because if you get stung on the nose by one of these wasps, you black out. So you fall from the canopy, and as soon as you even begin to approach a wasp nest that big, like it's 1 meter tall, and thousands of big wasps, they come after you, and it's like a scene out of a bad movie.
Man! And
the boys that do it have so much courage.
Did you see any of them get stung in the nose and fall?
No, but they had story after story of that happening.
That would be enough. Like, all right, that is fine by me. Now, of other insects that you have to deal with as well too, while you're in Cameroon, you also, well, you're eating a lot of the local delicacies there, but there you're eating flying termites.
Yeah.
Where
So
they dump them into water to keep them from moving, and then they just start chowing down on them.
you take what you can get. There was a time, when we hadn't caught any meat, and we just needed to, all of a sudden we had one of our torches on, and the place just got swamped with flying termites, and so the guy just couldn't believe my eyes. The guys just started picking them out of the air, grabbing them out and stuffing them in their mouths.
Wow.
Yeah.
So for them, it's like, oh, look at this great feast that has just arrived here to us. All right, let's chow down.
I mean, I didn't even know the termites flew until that day.
So to backpedal for 1 second, as we're talking about dangerous situations, your partner, how is he interacting with you on these as you're going through this experience of the rite of passage? Is he pretty much just like, I'm just going to document, I'm going to be quiet, or is he in your ear saying, Tim, this seems crazy, what are you doing?
Yeah. He a lot of the time. So he'd man the camera when I had to be in front. So I'd set the camera up, adjust the focus and all the rest of it, and then jump in front, and then he would hit record and pan and tilt and try and capture the moment. So he, a lot of the time, but then there's other times where he couldn't be there. So if I was climbing in Thailand, I had to climb up, way like hundreds of meters up into, or 100 meters up into these crazy cliffs, these caves in Thailand to collect little birds' nests on wooden scaffolding with no ropes or harnesses or anything like that. And it was really dangerous. And he was really freaked out. But I think then because nobody wants a death on their hands, and I think then he sort of settled into the fact that you do tap into some sort of a sixth sense in these scenarios. I can't quite explain it or what it is, but when you have to approach a horse like a bucking bronco, a wild stallion, there's something else as between two animals that you lock in, and I don't know, something happens. You can feel whether it's safe to go forward. That line about mortality, there's an edge that you can ride, and sometimes you just got to be careful you're not dipping over from bravery to stupidity. But if you can find that line, it's quite a magical space to be in. I can't quite describe it. It's like with the bull. When it's safe, intuitively and instinctively. I don't know how to.
Although I did like watching that scene, because it felt like your mentor and the medicine man were behind you, just like, go. Now's your time. Now's your time. I feel like they get that on your back, like shoving you towards them. Do it now.
And the reward after you've conquered something that even they thought you couldn't do. Because I was in virtually every location, 12 locations, I'd walk in and they'd all say, there's no way you're going to be able to do this. And I used to quite like that, because that would give me some reason to prove them wrong. Yeah. But the feeling after you've shown that you're prepared to conquer that fear, and the acceptance that you feel, and it's the love that you feel from these people, there's just nothing that beats that feeling. It's amazing.
Does it change from location 1 to location 12 in terms of that fear or uncertainty if you can accomplish these rite of passages? Because I would imagine by rite of passage 6 or 7, you're like, man, all right, I've done 7 of these things. I feel like I can conquer pretty much anything you throw at me. Did that kind of increase as you went along? So by 12, you're like, bring it on. I can take care of it. I can do anything. You want me to wrestle a snowman, an abominable snowman? I'll do it. I'll do it right now. Or was that same level of like, I don't know what I'm getting myself into? Did that exist all the way through?
It did. I did, consistently think that, but I learnt different things about manhood every time. So it wasn't like I was just I was conquering the same fear over and over and over again. I'd conquer something else in myself. It just depended on where in the world I was and what the initiation entailed. Like for some, it was about being a provider and being able to hunt for food and be able to depend on yourself to be able to feed a family. So, and then in Mongolia, say I had to train a wild golden eagle, and for that, and to hunt and catch a fox in the wild, and that was a rite of passage more than an initiation. So that was a lot softer, but so incredible, and you almost had to become a father to this giant bird. So then you had and feed it, and almost like a baby, like an infant. So you'd learn different things in every place, and so it was varied enough. And because we were having these relationships with also these incredible animals, like a horse. I'd never ridden a horse before, but then to bond with an animal that hated me to begin with, and just bucked me off everywhere, and I'd be landing on the ground and then push past that and become friends with it, and then it becoming, then galloping across the plains of Venezuela with this animal. I mean, you just, wow, those moments will stick with me for the rest of my life.
Sure, and I imagine there's with a little bit of sadness too, because you create these incredible bonds with an eagle or a horse, and then you have to leave.
Yeah, and it's extremely sad. Like I remember these animals and these people. I'll remember every day. I think about them. There was the last episode that we filmed was with these incredible people, this tribe in Brazil called the Shivanti, and they were the toughest guys ever. We had part of the initiation was to go toe to toe with a club against another opponent, and I had to get into a fight, and I'd never been in a fight before. I mean, even in the schoolyard, I'd always sort of been the meek kid that sort of walked away, and so for me that was really confronting. And so they gave me a club and said, then my opponent started walking towards me, and he was younger, fitter, tougher, and I thought, he's going to hit me. Oh my God, I've got to have a fight. And so all of a sudden we're fighting, and I got a broken rib. And as you said, like, there's no OH&S, there's no safety officers, the medical help was ages away. So for me, the risks were always really real. And yeah, it was really intense. But then, because I went through with that, they were just so stoked, and we formed this bond like nothing else. And they were the gentlest people ever. So they were so super tough, but really gentle. You'd go to bed and everyone would come around and give you a hug, and then they'd be there ready to film at 5 a.m. the next morning. So leaving them after going through such a arduous, like, part of their initiation. Sorry to talk so much.
Oh, no, this is great.
Well, part of their initiation is having the men believe that, and we were talking before about the different facets of manhood and about what, the initiations and how you learn different things. Well, part of theirs was spiritual. What you need to do is be able to, they bring the boys through extreme duress and extreme fatigue and exhaustion to a point where they get delirious, and then they collapse and then they have a vision, which is they believe is a vision of their future. So they'll see a glimpse of their future life, and that'll stick with them forever. So that's part of their initiation. So that's what I was there to do.
Did they push you to deliriousness?
Well, it was hard because it only really occurred to me when I got there, how am I going to film it if I'm delirious? So they really did try to get me to that point, and they gave me a concoction that I was to drink, and I danced for hours and hours and hours in the sun. But to get to that point of exhaustion, I think I would have had to be there for months.
Yeah. So
it was a bit disappointing. I never got there, but it didn't matter in the end. Actually, I got my ears pierced there with a puma bone as well. But they still decided to do that as a sign of respect, I think.
Well,
so
I would imagine any person that would be willing to make the trek to their village, wherever they are in the world, and be humble and want to embrace their way of life and succeed at that. I would imagine that everybody would want to welcome somebody like that with open arms. Yeah,
these people were so special. But by the end, when I had to say goodbye to them, for both of us, we'd been through the highs and lows of making a film together. And they'd done everything they could with rituals and everything to try and help heal my rib, and to walk away from them was really tough. Yeah, I mean, I hope that I can one day go back to all of these places once again and see all of our friends in these remote places.
That would be really cool. At least just for a great follow-up, just to see where everybody's been since then.
Yeah.
For that fight, is the idea for when you're battling each other with clubs that that both opponents are going all out? Or is it more just, we will swing and hit, but it's...
No, what happens is the boys get pulled together and get pushed into a ring to fight, to try to get them to toughen up early. And their fathers stand on the outside and encourage them. But it's clan versus clan. So within a village, you've got different clans that they marry. But it's it's quite tribal, and so they need to. I was part of one clan, and I was going in to represent them, and I desperately didn't want to let them down. So, but I had an opposite rival clan that came in to fight me, and you keep hitting that person over and over and over again until that one gives in. And there was a point where you just think, oh no, I'm going to get really hurt here. There's a funny story. We finished that fight, and then I went to check the camera and see had I got it, because I was hobbling around. I knew I'd hurt my rib, but I wanted to make sure that I didn't have to do it again. And I looked in the viewfinder, and the whole time I was just laughing. I was smiling. I had no idea what was happening because I was so high on adrenaline. And so I thought, I've got to do this again. So I went back into the ring and fought again.
Wow.
And it's at that point that I think maybe it was the straw that broke the camel's back. I think that's when I broke my rib. But yeah,
man, that's just technically when you're doing these productions, especially just with you and your partner.
Yeah,
I mentioned whether you're crawling up into a cave or you're doing this, that you don't have a chance to scout it ahead of time because that's part of the ritual. So in terms of trying to get coverage for the thing you want to shoot,
super difficult. Yeah,
is it a lot of you doing this ritual, and then once you get up to, say, for example, the cave, you get up there, you say, all right, stop everybody, I got to go in and put a camera inside just to film me walking going in, or you just do everything and you try your best just to capture it all in the moment? I
try my best to. It depends on the situation. Like if you're doing a scene where you're capturing a bird or something like that, or it's learning how to use a bow and arrow or whatever it may be that's not so dependent on an event happening, then I'll go back and I'll work out how to shoot it beautifully and make a scene out of it. But if it's an event that can't ever be redone, where you've really only got one shot, then you have to be really conscious of getting it and making sure that it's captured. And then in most cases, the more raw it is, the better. So if it is just shot on a GoPro, then that's cool, and then we can work out how to make the show look beautiful in other ways.
But just for that, the immediacy of just that moment.
Yeah.
That no matter how it's captured, I imagine
a lot of thought is actually before that initiation ritual might happen. Like I'll work out, I'll go into a place and I'll see how many cameras that what could happen, the extremes. Say if you're jumping on a horse, like I'd set the camera up, hope and pray that the horse doesn't run into the camera. Part of the initiation there is you jump on a wild horse and they've blindfolded the horse, and then you get on its back, and you've got to have the courage to pull the blindfold back, and then it goes berserk. And then 10 times later, after you've fallen off 10 times, the horse apparently is broken. And yeah, it took a few more times for me, but I kind of got used to falling off the horse, and luckily it's in these swamplands of Venezuela, so it's quite a nice cushioned landing. It wasn't like landing on dirt. But yeah, you've got to be careful about where you put the cameras. So I just chuck cameras to my mentors. GoPro, the more cameras, the better, just to make sure someone surely will get that shot.
Because with the GoPros, that's an easy one to pass to people in the village to have them film, because
totally.
It's pretty much you just press record and just focus it at the action.
Yeah. The GoPro was indispensable. I mean, I had a range of cameras, so when I'd go away, I'd have a big cinema camera for all the big, beautiful, pretty shots. Of course, have a drone, which they fly themselves now. So
all those exteriors that you have, like the high up shot, those are all from your drone?
Yeah, they're all from my drone.
Man, those are beautiful shots.
Yeah, and of course you can just get it to track you these days. So it just does the job. It's amazing. I mean, they're so incredible now.
Because there's the one shot when you're getting into Madagascar where you first see the bulls.
Yeah.
They come up and they block the road.
Yeah,
and you've already got the shot. It's like, so that right there, you already had the drone up and running for that.
Yeah.
Because I was like, man, that's incredible coverage for that shot.
Yeah.
Nicely done.
And on all of these adventures, you can only predict what's going to happen so far. For so long. Because you've always got to have your eyes wide open for the story to completely change and become about something completely different, because it invariably always something goes wrong. Always.
It's like one of those plan for the best and expect the worst.
Yeah. And I think it's more about like filmmaking in general is more about like how to deal with the problems rather than what you're there to do. It's more about problem solving.
Well, as for somebody who wanted to push themselves out of their comfort zone, really challenge themselves, that it's just not just a one-off experience. Every single adventure in these 12 locations, you're constantly re-challenging yourself.
Yeah.
That's, just both just as a man, but then also as a producer and as a filmmaker too. Because it's two different hats you got to be wearing, and both are equally as challenging, I would imagine.
Yeah, I mean, I think also, like, it doesn't matter. You don't have to go off and do an extreme rite of passage to prove yourself. No one else has to go and do that. It's all a personal thing. And if it comes down to believing in yourself and taking big risks to chase a dream, that's what it's all about for me. I mean, you could be doing it in an office space and challenging yourself to chase a relationship that you desperately want, or putting yourself out there in that area, or chasing a job, or chasing a career in a space that you really have always dreamed of, and having the courage to walk away from something that is just a 9-to-5 for you. Like, that's, for me, I mean, you can do it anywhere. You don't have to be in the wilds of Africa or Brazil to make that happen. You can be right here in LA.
Now, for you, going forward, we're kind of documenting all these kind of transitional life experiences, whether it be going from boy to man, maybe marriage, the birth of a child.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you're going to be documenting all those different kind of journeys?
Mission. Yeah.
And would it always be kind of in remote locations, or do you find yourself going just to different cities in the world and documenting some more of those different versions?
I've thought about that a lot. Like, so my life's mission, I think, if you want to put it that way, is to document and chapter life's rite of passages. So yeah, certainly the next one that we're hoping to do is my fiance and I putting ourselves to the test before we commit. So there's extraordinary tests of love out there, and that's what we'll be doing next. So yeah, that's really exciting. So whether or not that is in a city, I've filmed a lot in cities and suburban areas, but there's something about the allure of the adventure of taking off and going into the wild that I just can't let go of.
Understandably so, because I feel like we have a good frame of reference for a lot of those, whether it be the marriage or a birth of a child in civilizations, but for some uncharted regions or civilizations that are kind of just really small and unknown, their customs and their traditions are things that a lot of us don't have a lot of knowledge or frame of reference for. So that would be cool to see it through that lens.
Yeah, and also there's nothing quite like getting that knowledge before it is going to be extinct. Like, there are so many rituals that are fading away so fast, and if we can record them for all of history, then all the better. Like, it's just maybe I'm just trying to live a boyhood Tintin type adventure, but I don't know.
Hey, Tintin's cool. You can't go wrong with that. As you mentioned about that, do these civilizations, do they feel that our society is dwindling rapidly, and within 50 to 100 years, our way of life may no longer exist?
Yeah, they do. Like, a lot of the elders do. Yeah, they can see massive shifts. I mean, there have been so many places I've been where the young want to be just on their mobile phones. And again, I can't blame anybody for wanting to do that. Like, they want to go out. They want to explore. I mean, I grew up in a little island, on the bottom of Australia, and I desperately, as a young boy, wanted to get out and see my limits, see how much you could do on Earth, and who you could be. And sometimes you do need to leave home to go do that. So for anybody that grows up in any remote area, you can never sort of blame anyone for wanting to go and expand their horizons. So yeah, but they do. But the elders, it is a concern. It definitely is a concern.
Is it something that they're trying, however way they can, to combat that, or they just are just accepting that whatever's going to happen through the passage of time is going to happen, and eventually we were just going to phase out?
Well, I think maybe even... See, it's been interesting, because in the process of making some of these films, the young guys have seen what we've been filming, and their identity, they recognise, once you lose that identity of who you are and where you've come from, you're left with not much. So when we make this film and they see that we've come there to make something and document it and be proud of it, and have it be a fun show that the rest of the world can admire and them for who they are and where they've come from, I think it does help. I truly think it does. I think they do get everybody. It is a bonding experience, and the elders love it, of course, because you're documenting age-old traditions. But the young then feel proud of it, and they might not take it away, and then always go back to those dress in the ancient ways or anything like that. But they still can be proud of where they come from. If that makes sense.
It does.
Yeah.
It's man, it is an impressive show, and I got to watch the first 2 episodes and loved them, and I'm excited to watch the other 10 to see. I want to see you get in a big fight. I want to see you swinging that club. I'm excited to see that part. So Tim, as we're getting ready to wrap up, and they want to follow your adventures, whether it's going to be documenting your acts of love that you and your fiance. I imagine you're not only going to go through these, but also document these on camera as well.
Yeah,
that should be a fun test for that relationship. Looking forward to it. Where can they follow all your adventures?
They can go to El Rey, to the El Rey site, or they can go to my own personal page, which is just Tim Noonan, or Facebook. Just look me up, Tim Noonan TV on Facebook or YouTube. It's funny because I've been in the jungle for so long. I only just got on Facebook.
Only? Really?
Yeah.
Wow. All right.
So it's about 7 months ago. So yeah, it's been a baptism by fire, but also confronting.
Yes.
It's also good to put yourself out there. Is another way, to face fears and face challenges, and I think you can do it anywhere as long as you have the courage to do it.
I think that's, if anything, anybody could take away that's been watching this is just, if anybody is thinking even for a moment that I want to change my life in some way, shape, or form, the hardest first step is just starting. All you got to do is start. It's like follow your dream. We all have one. Yeah, we've all got that thing that we love to do, or we look up when we go home, and some people say to me, "Oh, well, I don't know what my passion is. I don't have one. I'm still searching for it." But it doesn't. It's not rocket science, you do. It's all around you. It's what you already do. You just have to look at your past and what you enjoy doing. If you find yourself saying, "I should do this," or "I have to do this," rather than "I want and I love to do this," they're pretty good indicators to which way you should be going in life. Yeah. My guest today, Tim Noonan. Check out his show debuting June 8th on the El Rey Network, Rites of Passage. It is an awesome show. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Frank Moran. I've been your host today. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at HappyGoJackie. Thanks so much for joining us for this episode of AfterBuzz TV Spotlight on... Yeah, Spotlight on. I said that sentence correctly, Tim. Look at me. I stuck the landing. Uncertain, but I'm going to pretend like I knew what I was doing the whole time. We'll get you. Well, thanks for joining me, Tim. We'll see you here next time on AfterBuzz TV for another edition of Spotlight On. Take care, everybody.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.